The discovery beneath Mars. The red dust of Mars swirled against the reinforced windows of Research Station Olympus, a silent reminder of the hostile world outside. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck, her dark eyes fixed on the excavation site below. 3 years of relentless searching had led them here, to this moment. Massive drilling platforms churned against the Martian surface, their rhythmic vibrations shaking the station's very foundation. Something was down there, something ancient. A sharp beep from her communicator pulled her from her thoughts. "Dr. Chen, you need to see this." The voice belonged to Marcus Reyes, the station's chief engineer. He was not easily rattled, but there was an unmistakable tremor in his voice. Sarah grabbed her tablet and rushed to the elevator. The descent to sublevel 3 felt eternal, even though it took barely 30 seconds. The doors slid open with a quiet hiss, revealing Marcus standing before a newly exposed section of wall. His scanner hovered over its metallic surface, the device flickering erratically. "It's not natural," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "The composition. It's unlike anything we've ever encountered." Sarah stepped forward, brushing away a thin layer of dust. Beneath it, intricate geometric patterns pulsed with a faint blue-green glow. The designs twisted and shifted as if responding to their presence. "How old is it?" she asked, running her fingers along the metal. It was cool to the touch, unnervingly smooth, almost liquid. Marcus shook his head. "The dating system is haywire. Either it's malfunctioning, or this predates human civilization by at least 100,000 years. Her tablet chirped. An incoming call from Earth. She tapped the screen, and Director James Harrison's weathered face appeared. "Dr. Chen, we're receiving unusual energy readings from your sector. What's going on?" "Director, we found something," she said, turning her camera toward the glowing wall. "It appears to be an artificial structure, and based on preliminary scans, it's beyond anything we've ever seen." Harrison's expression darkened. "Any idea what it is?" "Not yet, but..." A low humming filled the air. The geometric patterns flared brighter, their glow reflecting off the walls of the chamber. Then, without warning, a seam appeared in the metal where none had been before. Sarah stepped back. The wall was opening. A collective silence fell over the team as the structure parted, revealing a long, dark corridor stretching into the Martian bedrock. The air was dense, charged with a strange static that made the hair on Sarah's arms rise beneath her suit. "Everyone back!" Marcus shouted. But there was no explosion, no sudden rush of ancient gases, only the silent invitation of the corridor beyond. Sarah swallowed hard. "Director requesting permission to investigate further." Harrison hesitated, his face unreadable. Then, with a slow nod, he said, "Proceed with extreme caution. Full hazmat protocols. And Sarah, be careful." Within the hour, Sarah led a small team into the passage. Their hazmat suits were clumsy, restrictive, but necessary. The corridor walls pulsed faintly, lighting their path in an eerie bioluminescent glow. The air inside was breathable, remarkably so, but protocol dictated they not remove their helmets. The tunnel sloped downward, stretching deeper into the Martian crust. Every step echoed against the alien metal, amplifying the silence. After 200 meters, the corridor opened into a vast chamber. And that was when they saw it. Suspended in the center of the cavern was a structure that defied logic. A massive monolithic sphere, floating effortlessly above the ground. Its surface shimmered like liquid mercury, shifting and reforming in patterns their eyes struggled to follow. The walls surrounding it were adorned with more of the pulsating symbols, their glow intensifying the closer they moved to the sphere. Marcus whispered, This isn't a ruin. This is active." Sarah barely heard him. Her focus was on the monolith. A single touch would change everything. Her gloved hand hesitated only a moment before pressing against the surface. And then, the chamber erupted with light, A deep, resonating hum filled the space as the entire room seemed to awaken. Symbols flashed wildly across the walls, and the floating sphere rippled, forming complex patterns across its liquid-like surface. Then came the voice. Not spoken, not heard, but felt. It reverberated inside their minds, deep and ancient, a presence far older than anything humanity had ever encountered. You are not the first. The team staggered back. Sarah's breath hitched. The monolith pulsed again. You are not prepared. The word sent a chill through her very core. And then the monolith's surface split open. A cold, unrelenting darkness poured forth, and something within began to move. The awakening of the monolith. The chamber trembled as the monolith split open. It wasn't a simple crack or a doorway. It was as if the sphere was unraveling itself, folding and twisting into impossible shapes. The liquid metallic surface rippled like disturbed water, yet it was clear there was a structure beneath. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest. She barely registered Marcus gripping her arm, pulling her backward. The team instinctively raised their scanning devices, but the data streams on their visors were chaotic. Fluctuating readings, temperature spikes, energy surges. Every known metric of matter and physics had gone haywire. And then, from the depths of the monolith, something stepped out. It wasn't a machine, nor was it biological. It was something in between, an entity composed of shifting metal and luminous energy, its humanoid form both mesmerizing and terrifying. It moved without sound, without hesitation, as if it had always existed and was merely resuming its function. The air thickened, the unseen force that had filled the chamber now pressing into their suits like an unseen gravity. And then came the voice. Chronostate integrity, compromised. It wasn't spoken, not in any traditional sense. The words formed in their minds, carried on a frequency beyond sound. Sarah's body felt frozen, her breath caught in her throat. The entity's head turned toward her, or at least, what should have been a head. Its structure was fluid, constantly shifting between geometric patterns, forming intricate glyphs before dissolving again. Human designation. Anomalous. Marcus exhaled sharply. Sarah, what the hell is that thing? She swallowed hard, forcing her voice to remain steady. I don't know. A deep hum vibrated through the walls. The symbols covering the chamber pulsed, responding to the entity's presence. A second later, the Martian dust along the floor lifted, moving as if drawn to some invisible force. The entity stepped forward. Instinctively, the team stepped back. Dr. Chen, one of the researchers, Evans, shouted over the comms. Our comms with Olympus are cutting out. Something's interfering with the signal. Sarah's mind raced. If their connection to the surface was lost, they'd have no backup. No way to warn Earth. No way to call for help. The monolith pulsed again. And then the room changed. The walls, once adorned with glowing symbols, shifted, rearranging as if the entire chamber was alive. The pulsing glow intensified, shifting into new configurations, and before Sarah could process it, the room transformed into something else entirely. A city. Not in a physical sense. The chamber hadn't changed, but within their minds, they were no longer standing in a Martian ruin. They were standing in a metropolis, a vast, sprawling civilization filled with impossible architecture, towering structures that curved against an alien skyline. The Martian sky was gone, replaced by an expanse filled with twin suns and a shattered moon hanging in the distance. It was a memory, a holographic projection. No, it was too real. A glimpse into the past. Marcus gasped. We're seeing what this place used to be. The city was alive. Beings, similar to the monolithic entity, walked its streets, interacting, constructing, creating. The air was filled with an energy that hummed beneath the surface of existence, a power that vibrated in harmony with its inhabitants. And then, destruction. The vision flickered. The peaceful cityscape became a war zone. Explosions rocked the skyline. Structures crumbled. The luminous beings, once serene, fought. Not against humans, not against anything Sarah could recognize. Against something worse. Massive, nightmarish forms tore through the city, vast shadows consuming the skyline. They had no defined shape, no singular form, just writhing masses of shifting darkness, moving with intelligence and purpose. A war beyond time. A war that had no victor. A war that ended in silence. The vision collapsed. The chamber returned to its cold, Martian reality. Sarah staggered, gasping for breath. Her mind reeled from the sheer magnitude of what they had just witnessed. What the hell was that? Marcus whispered. The entity, still standing before them, shifted. The voice returned, low, resonant, final. Your world is next. A tremor shot through the chamber. The ground rumbled. The energy readings on their suits spiked. Evans shouted, "The structure, it's destabilizing. We need to get out. Now." Sarah turned, but before she could move, the monolith collapsed inward, its liquid metal surface folding into itself like a collapsing star. And the entity, the last survivor of a war long forgotten, vanished. Then came the explosion. A shockwave ripped through the corridor. The last thing Sarah saw was the blinding white light. Before everything went dark. The ghosts of war. Silence. Sarah's consciousness floated in darkness, weightless, detached. She felt as if she were suspended in the void of space, yet something pulled at her mind, something ancient whispering just beyond her reach. Then, a sharp inhale. Her lungs burned as she gasped, reality crashing back like a tidal wave. Her body ached, her vision blurred, and a high-pitched ringing filled her ears. She was alive. Barely. She forced her eyes open. The chamber was in ruins. The once pristine walls of the Martian structure were now cracked and unstable, the once glowing symbols fading as if the very life of the structure had been drained. Dust choked the air, illuminated by the flickering remnants of alien bioluminescence. Sarah groaned, pushing herself onto her elbows. Around her, Marcus and Evans lay sprawled across the shattered floor, their suits damaged but intact. Their biosigns blinked weakly on her HUD. A faint groan came from Marcus as he stirred, coughing. "Dan, I think I blacked out." Sarah turned to Evans, gently shaking his shoulder. "Evans, wake up. We need to move." Evans blinked rapidly, his face pale behind his visor. "Did you what? What happened?" Sarah barely had an answer. The last thing she remembered was the warning. "Your world is next." And then, the explosion. Her head throbbed. She tried to recall the final moments before losing consciousness. The monolith had collapsed. The entity had vanished, but something about the destruction didn't sit right. It hadn't been a simple failure. It had been a purge. A shudder ran through her. "We have to get out of here," she said, forcing herself to her feet. Olympus Station. Did anyone hear from Olympus before the explosion? Marcus tapped the side of his helmet, trying to re-establish comms. The static in their earpieces was overwhelming. No signal. We're cut off. Sarah gritted her teeth. This was bad. If Olympus thought they were dead, no one was coming. Evans coughed, trying to shake off the shock. "Sarah, did we just see the end of an entire civilization?" Sarah's mind was already racing. What had wiped them out? Who were the beings in the vision? The warriors? And more importantly, who were their enemies? Then came the sound. A deep, guttural rumble. The ground trembled beneath their feet. At first, Sarah thought it was another collapse, but then she saw it. The symbols across the walls flickered again, not with the same bioluminescent pulse from before, but with warning signals. Something was coming. Marcus turned, his expression dark. "I don't think we're alone." A mechanical whine echoed through the chamber. Sarah's heart pounded as she turned toward the far end of the ruins, where the darkened corridor stretched deeper into the structure. Then, movement. A shadow shifted. Then another, and another. Eyes, glowing red eyes. Emerging from the darkness, they moved with unnatural precision, their elongated, skeletal forms gliding across the floor without sound. Their limbs were razor-thin, their metallic bodies jagged and incomplete, as if they had been built from the scraps of something that once lived. Sarah knew. These were not survivors. These were the remnants of war. Marcus's breath hitched. "Tell me you see that." Sarah swallowed hard. "I see it." Evans trembled. "Those things, they're not alive, are they?" One of the creatures jerked its head toward them. The moment was grotesque, like an insect reacting to an unseen stimulus. And then, it charged. Sarah barely had time to react before the thing lunged forward, its spindly body unfolding at inhuman speed. Marcus fired his plasma cutter, but the blast passed through it as if its body was flickering between dimensions. Evans screamed, "Run!" Sarah didn't need to be told twice. The team bolted, sprinting back toward the corridor they had come from. The sound of clattering metal chased them, the creatures moving like liquid shadows, flowing across the walls and ceiling, always just behind them. Sarah's suit HUD was flashing red, heart rate spiking, oxygen levels unstable. They rounded a corner, pushing forward as fast as their heavy suits allowed. The exit was close. They could still make it. Then the lights cut out. Total darkness. The only illumination came from the monster's red, glowing eyes. Sarah stumbled, reaching for Marcus but grasping only air. "Marcus?" "Evans." No answer. Her breathing turned ragged as she felt the presence closing in. Then, a new voice entered her mind. "You should not be here." It was different from the monolith's voice. Less mechanical. More ancient. The air shifted, and suddenly, light. But not from her suit. From the walls. The corridor ignited in a burst of blue energy, forming intricate patterns that shot across the surfaces like a defensive grid coming back online. The creatures screeched in response, their bodies convulsing as if in pain. A blinding pulse rippled outward. Sarah collapsed. When she opened her eyes again, the creatures were gone. Marcus groaned nearby. Evans coughed. They were still alive. But something had saved them. Sarah pushed herself up. The walls, once damaged and lifeless, were now humming softly, reactivating. A presence still lingered in her mind. A whisper. A warning. Your world is next. But this time, there was more. They are already coming. Sarah's breath hitched. Who? Who was coming? A new pulse rippled through the structure. The energy was spreading outward, beyond the ruins, reaching across the Martian surface. A beacon. A signal. Marcus's voice was hoarse. "Sarah, what did we just wake up?" Sarah turned toward the exit. The storm outside had changed. The red dust of Mars was twisting, spiraling. And above them, beyond the clouds, in the vast emptiness of space, something was moving.